The Raptors gave up 2 second-round picks to get Trayce Jackson-Davis, and since then, he's barely played, even registering multiple DNPs in that time, which is extremely confusing. Let's figure out what's going on. So the Raptors traded an LA Lakers second-round pick to acquire Trayce Jackson-Davis from the Golden State Warriors. So my intro does sound misleading, but wait. They had to salary dump Ochai Agbaji in a trade to the Nets to get under the tax in order to trade for Trayce Jackson-Davis. And in order to salary dump Ochai Agbaji, they had to attach a 2032 second-round pick, essentially saying they had to give up 2 second-round picks in order to get Trayce Jackson-Davis. Look, 2 second-round picks isn't this crazy amount to give up, especially in the modern NBA, but these sorts of assets can stack up and can become important as you look to actually strengthen your team with trades. So they aren't just giving these things away. They made this trade for a reason, or at least they thought they were. But let's take a step back and analyze why the Raptors traded for Trayce Jackson-Davis to begin with. Throughout the season, yes, the Raptors have had success, especially in the win-loss column, especially in the standings. They've gone beyond what we thought they would be doing this season. They are overperforming based on the preseason expectations, but it still always felt like they had a little bit more to give. As much as there was success, they were leaving some wins on the table. They were making some of their wins harder than they needed to be. And maybe one of the big reasons why that was the case was the lack of size on the team, especially with Jakob Poeltl dealing with a back injury through so much of the season. That's really the only traditional big the Raptors had in the roster. Not to say that Trayce Jackson-Davis is a traditional big, but the only real traditional big, the only 7-footer they had on their team was Poeltl. And other than that, like, it's been Mamoukelashvili playing as a center sometimes, and he's undersized. We've had a lot of Collin Murray-Boyles playing as a center, and he's undersized. Like, we're really undermanned in the front court. So the Raptors clearly needed to bolster that. Now, they could have done it with a very large trade, or they could have taken the approach they did. Not spend a ton of the assets and bring in some help for the position. Bring in some depth for the position. And it looked like they were able to do that with Jackson-Davis. And after they acquired him, he had a really promising start to life as a Toronto Raptor. He played 50 minutes in his debut and recorded a double-double. 10 points and 10 rebounds. Now, I didn't think that level of play would sustain, but as a showcase, this is a player who can help us. In his second game, he played nearly 10 minutes, but since then, it has been all downhill. He's basically only played in garbage time, or he's like not playing at all. In fact, he's registered 2 DNPs in this time. And he's even been sent down to the G League since then, where he had an outrageous game showing his ability. 32 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 65% from the field. Like, clearly showcasing he is a player that has some talent. Not saying he needs 15 minutes a game, but clearly a player who can get important minutes, 8 to 10 minutes of meaningful basketball a game. So why is he not playing? Unfortunately, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know. He was brought in for depth. Jakob Poeltl was dealing with a lot of injuries. Jakob Poeltl's starting to look healthier, yes, but Collin Murray-Boyles has missed quite a few games, and yet still, he's not playing. They are struggling for size in the paint. In some certain games, they are just getting out-rebounded, outdone in the paint. He's still not playing. I understand the desire from like Darko Rajakovic for wanting some additional floor spacing, because typically the last guy in the rotation for the Raptors right now has been either Jamison Battle or Grady Dick. Yes, that can help with the half-court offense. Yes, that can help with the floor spacing. Even if they're not knocking down shots necessarily, the threat of them knocking down shots helps space the floor. But there are other areas of the game in which we need help, such as in the paint, such as in rebounding, and he can provide some of that help. So I have 2 major problems with this whole situation. Firstly, it's Darko Rajakovic. Clearly, the team needs size, and they still don't use him. Like I said, he already has 2 DNPs for the Raptors. He technically should have 3 DNPs, though, because he played only 1 second of a game where he came in to help get a rebound on a free throw. But that's besides the point. He is literally, like, not featured in any meaningful minutes for the last 7 games. And, like, very clearly, in one of those DNPs, for example, in a game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Raptors were down big. They were down by 25 points in the game. They nearly made a miraculous comeback, but throughout where the struggles were happening for the Raptors, a lot of it was in the paint. A lot of it was lack of rebounding. And we addressed going into the trade deadline, like, the Raptors needed help with rebounding, with size, with front court depth. Like, this was a glaring issue with the rotation, something that we lacked, especially when we were dealing with injuries. And yet still, even with injuries, the Raptors are electing not to use him. Darko Rajakovic, as head coach, is electing not to use him in meaningful minutes where it feels like he could provide minutes of substance. Now, when the team is healthy, you know what? There might actually be enough in the front court there. You have Jakob Poeltl, who's looking a lot healthier, by the way. Mamukelashvili has been great this season, and Collin Murray-Boyles has been great this season. Yes, Murray-Boyles, Mamukelashvili aren't like traditional centers in terms of their size. Neither is Trayce Jackson-Davis. So I'm okay with that. I understand that. I still feel like he can give us some sort of a role, Trayce Jackson-Davis, but I can understand that. But I cannot understand it when Collin Murray-Boyles is dealing with a thumb injury and he's missing games, or it's a second night of a back-to-back and Jakob Poeltl is getting the night off. Clearly, this is a player who can help. Clearly, this is a player that the front office identified could help this team and brought him in, and Darko Rajakovic is not using him. And again, I'm just struggling to understand why. But the second problem I have with this is on the front office and Bobby Webster. If this is a player that the coaching staff was not going to use, then why were any assets, even if it's 1 second-round pick, why were any assets given up for him? Why expend any resources in bringing in this player if your coaching staff is not going to use him? Like, I would hope there's some communication ahead of time that, like, we're going to bring in this player. Are you going to use him? Because why even bother giving something up, even as small as it is, if the coaching staff has no willingness to use them? Like, I look back to when the Raptors had Mo Bamba on the 10-day contract. Like, yeah, they brought him in and he wasn't playing, but like, at least they didn't have to give up anything to bring him in. Sure, they may want like the extra roster spot for something, but like, they also could have gotten that by salary dumping Ochai Agbaji to the Brooklyn Nets, getting Chris Paul in the 3-team trade and waiving him. That also would have opened up a roster spot for anything they want to do to add on to the team. But you had Mo Bamba, who brings better size to the team and didn't cost a second-round pick to bring in. It feels like there was a very large lack of communication between the front office and the coaching staff, and for that, I have to put a little bit of blame on Bobby Webster for this whole confusing situation. As for the player, I do kind of feel a little bit bad. His role was diminished and decreasing with the Golden State Warriors, and they weren't really using him as much as they were previously. So he got a move seemingly to get more playtime elsewhere, and he's getting less playtime than ever before. So for him, it's going to be all about waiting for those opportunities, waiting for the opportunities to get out there on the court, and he's really got to deliver in those minutes, because clearly there is a reluctance from the coaching staff to use him right now. When they do decide there is a matchup, we need size, we need additional rebounding help, maybe a better pick and roll threat off the bench to help with the half-court offense, maybe slightly off the bench. When those opportunities come, he has to seize them in order to get game time the rest of the way. He can play a role that eases the constraints from some of the weaknesses of the team. He deserves more than just garbage time and DNPs. So Trayce Jackson-Davis, I want a little bit more clarity. I'm still confused. Can you enlighten me onto any information that you may have or that you're seeing, or provide your opinion on this whole situation, whether or not you agree with me? I hope he starts to get used a little bit more, but we'll have to wait and see to find out.